My name is Sharon Ilyas. I have been teaching IELTS at University of Spoken English and Computer Science for more than 5 years, and it's an amazing experience of working at this organization in Peshawar. Now, here today we are going to talk about IELTS preparation, especially what problems students face while doing IELTS test. Now, preparation of any exam is very crucial and it's important, but how we take that preparation matters as well. Now, a lot of students, they do not know the level of English and they just jump into the preparation, or they just want to clear the IELTS in like 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, or like maximum 2 months as well. But they don't know their level of English, and that's where they lack. Now, what happens here when preparing for IELTS, the students need to have real expectations for their exams, for real expectations of what they are, how much score they need, and where do they stand. As IELTS is not just an test, but it's an experience. It's IELTS is not just a test, but it's also an experience. The student checks his level of assessment, his level of English on international standards. So that's how he has to be good with his basics, plus with his how to follow the techniques and get good score. Now, if a student gets 6 bands, 6.5 bands, he's between 6 and 7. Like not exactly 6.5 bands, but he's between 6 and 7 bands. Now, what happens with students here normally, because of their level of English, plus of course their level of English matters a lot, but of course the techniques, smart techniques, not the hard techniques. Students always focus on the hard techniques, that they work really hard, and I appreciate that. But IELTS requires smart techniques over hard techniques. Besides this, when we cope for IELTS, when we are doing IELTS, student has to be smart enough to do the techniques in a fast way, not in the long way. Now, what happens now, if, for example, if a student is doing coping with listening techniques, so before starting listening preparation, he needs to clear his mind, he needs to clear his path, and he has to be confident enough to check that what kind of hurdles he's going to face. He has to be hassle-free, follow hassle-free techniques, and just stay confident. Because listening has some distractions. Distractions, like normally they confuse student, and student is like not focusing on the question. Now, focusing on question is really important thing. What the question is about and he has to answer. He has to follow the instructions, plus he has to follow the questions and listen to everything, but stay focused on the part he is interested in, rather than focusing on the entire listening module. Now, here what happens, students are always busy, and they are like they have some kind of examination pressure on their head that they are not going to do this listening test, or they have missed one exam. Remember one thing, if you have missed one, even 1 or 2 for example, so even on 39 marks, you get 9 bands. So try to be confident even if you may lose, even if you miss some option. Now, here one more thing is important: guess can be really important for you. Like, guess and move further. In case if you miss some answers, your guess can take you to the high level. You don't know the power of the guess. That's why students have issues. Now, in speaking, first of all, students need to be relaxed for speaking module, because examiners are always, like most of the examiners are Pakistani, and they have to just be confident and put a smile on their face when they do speaking test. While doing speaking tests, they have to speak clearly and confidently, focusing on their fluency. Fluency matters a lot. Like, they have to be fluent, and they have to avoid thinking sounds. Thinking sounds like these type of sounds you normally make students look confused. So they don't have to look confused. They just have to stay confident, and they just have to speak simple vocabulary, but relevant, and simple answers relevant to the point, and he has to give confidently with a smile, because smile gives a good vibe to the examiner, which helps him to get a better score, and which helps him to have a smooth test. Now, let's move on to reading. Reading is really, it sounds simple, that you just have to read questions and you have to find the answers and you have to do this. You just have to do comprehension. It sounds simple, but believe me, it is the most trickiest module among the 4. Now, what happens here in reading, what students do, they just waste their time reading a lot from the passage, which they do not have to do. First technique is that they have to read questions to get the idea about the passage. Once they read all the questions of one passage, they get the idea about the passage, that what the passage is about, and then they find the answers easily and quickly. The point is to read smart, not fast. So they have to read smartly with coping with the question, get the keywords. It's just like a game of treasure hunt. Clues are your questions and your keywords are your clues, and reading the passage is basically the surviving the pattern of having the moving towards the answer, and treasure is the answer. Practice will make, of course, perfect. Practice makes a man perfect. So practicing comprehension test is really helpful for everybody. Before, like 4 weeks before appearing in the test, while preparation, practice more and more comprehension test. Now let's move on to writing module. Writing has two parts, a descriptive and a narrative part. Descriptive is normally task 1, and in task 1 student has to write a description. He has to take some idea from the details from the image, for example line graph, chart graph, line graph, bar graph, a pie chart, table. They have some information already. Now all they need to do is they simply have to express the information using connectivity, like they should have connection of the ideas and be specific with the details. Normally students, what they do, they write a long descriptions about the passage, which is quite boring and which has more chances of mistakes. So a student has to be specific, write the specific details, be selective and be confident, use good connectors, good linking devices. Now part 2. In part 2, you have to write a composition of at least 250 words, and it's a narrative part. Like here, you have to give your, you have to be very confident, you have to use creativity in your writing, you have to use grammatical variety, grammatical range, and you have to bring variety of sentences using correct punctuations. Punctuations also are really important in task 1 and 2 both. Using the correct usage of punctuation is really important. What happens here in writing, students are normally confused while using very advanced vocabulary. Advanced vocabulary confuses them. Try to use simple vocabulary but relevant. Your vocabulary should be, your essay as a composition as a whole should be very smooth enough for examiner to read. Because what happens here, if you write something for a reader, so what the decoder thinks, a reader thinks, for a reader your writing brings two things for your reader. Either pleasure or headache. Now headache becomes when you're using complicated vocabulary and wrong vocabulary, not relevant, with wrong structures. Now smoothness brings pleasure. If your writing is smooth with simple vocabulary, to the point, relevant, and everything is connected, every idea is connected to the topic. Try not to go off the topic, it has a negative impact on the writing skills. So that is it for today. Thank you so much, and I hope that these techniques are really helpful while coping IELTS in future.